A day in the life of a frontier blacksmith. Welcome back to Keeping the Old West Alive, where we forge connections with the authentic characters who built the American West. Today we're heating up the coals and stepping into the shoes of one of the most essential yet underappreciated figures of any frontier settlement, the blacksmith. While gunslingers and gold seekers capture our imagination, it was the blacksmith whose hammer and anvil literally shaped the West. These skilled craftsmen created and repaired the tools, weapons, and equipment that made survival and progress possible on the frontier. What was daily life really like for these masters of metal? Let's strike while the iron is hot and discover what a day in the life of a frontier blacksmith was truly like from the 1850s through the 1890s. The blacksmith was among the first and most crucial tradesmen in any new settlement. Long before a town had doctors, lawyers, or even permanent stores, it needed someone who could work metal, creating and repairing the tools that every other profession required. The term blacksmith comes from working with black metals, primarily iron and steel, as opposed to whitesmiths who worked with tin and pewter, or goldsmiths and silversmiths who worked with precious metals. As America pushed westward, blacksmiths followed. During the California gold rush of 1849, a skilled blacksmith could earn more than most miners by sharpening picks and repairing equipment rather than digging for gold themselves. By the 1870s, virtually every town with more than 100 residents had at least one blacksmith shop, typically located near the center of the community due to both convenience and fire safety concerns. The distinctive ring of hammer on anvil became the heartbeat of developing communities. Becoming a blacksmith required years of training, typically through an apprenticeship beginning in the early teens. A full blacksmith needed to understand metallurgy, design, and a wide range of techniques, skills that couldn't be picked up quickly or casually. The profession was almost exclusively male during this period, though some blacksmiths' wives and daughters learned aspects of the trade, particularly in frontier regions where labor was scarce and practical skills were valued over strict gender roles. A day in the life. A blacksmith's day began before dawn, with the critical task of lighting and building up the forge. The heart of any smithy was the forge, a specially designed fireplace that could reach the extreme temperatures needed to make iron and steel malleable. Starting the forge was both art and science, requiring careful arrangement of coal or charcoal and precise control of airflow through the bellows. By sunrise, the smith would have his forge hot enough for the day's first tasks, typically around 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. The initial hours were often devoted to smaller repairs that had been dropped off the previous day, mending broken chains, straightening bent tools, or replacing worn horseshoes. As the morning progressed, the blacksmith would tackle larger projects. Every item required multiple steps: heating the metal in the forge until it glowed red or yellow, hammering it into shape on the anvil, reheating as necessary, and finally quenching the finished piece in water or oil to harden it. The work was rhythmic but never routine. Each piece presented unique challenges, and the smith had to read the metal by its color, knowing that bright yellow indicated maximum malleability, while cherry red meant the metal was cooling and would soon become too hard to work. Midday might bring farmers or ranchers with urgent needs: a broken plow that was halting spring planting, or a wagon wheel with a missing iron tire that was preventing transport of goods to market. These emergency repairs took priority, as the livelihood of entire families might depend on their swift completion. The blacksmith shop served as more than just a workplace. It was a community gathering spot where men exchanged news and discussed local affairs while waiting for repairs. The warmth of the forge made it particularly popular in winter months, when men might linger to escape the cold while ostensibly waiting for small jobs to be completed. Afternoon often brought horseshoeing work. This specialized task required not just metalworking skill, but also knowledge of horse anatomy and behavior. A good smith could calm nervous animals while efficiently removing worn shoes, trimming hooves, and fitting new shoes, typically completing all 4 hooves in under an hour. As the day progressed, the smith would work on custom orders, perhaps crafting hinges and latches for a new building, making cooking utensils for a homesteader's wife, or producing specialized tools for other tradesmen. The variety was endless, from delicate surgical instruments for the local doctor to heavy logging chains for timber operations. Late afternoon might be devoted to the smith's specialty items, the pieces that distinguished his work and reputation. Some smiths were known for superior axes or knives, others for decorative ironwork or gunsmithing. These signature items often traveled far beyond the local community, serving as advertisements for the smith's skill. As evening approached, the blacksmith would begin banking the forge, carefully preserving hot coals under a layer of ash so that the fire could be quickly revived the next morning without starting from scratch. This process saved both time and fuel, critical considerations on the frontier. The day would end with cleaning and organizing the shop, preparing for the next day's work. Despite exhaustion from the physical labor, many smiths used this quiet time to experiment with new techniques or work on personal projects by the light of oil lamps. Challenges and dangers. The blacksmith faced physical dangers that few other professions encountered. Burns were an everyday hazard, with even experienced smiths bearing the scars of momentary lapses in concentration. Eye injuries from flying metal fragments were common before protective eyewear became standard. The constant hammering led to hearing loss, and many older smiths were partially deaf. The physical toll was immense. A blacksmith might swing a 3-pound hammer thousands of times per day, developing massive upper body strength, but also suffering from joint problems and repetitive stress injuries. The constant exposure to extreme temperatures stressed the heart and lungs, while coal dust and metal particles caused respiratory issues. Fire was a constant concern. A stray spark could ignite the shop, and many smiths lost everything to workplace fires. This risk was why blacksmith shops were often built separate from other structures, with stone or brick construction when possible. Economic challenges were equally pressing. The blacksmith had to maintain a delicate balance, charging enough to cover expensive materials and compensate for his skill, while keeping prices affordable for frontier communities with limited cash. Many smiths operated on barter systems, accepting farm produce, firewood, or labor in exchange for their services. Perhaps most challenging was the constant evolution of the trade. As manufactured goods became more available with the expansion of railroads, blacksmiths had to adapt, focusing more on repairs and custom work that factories couldn't provide. Those who failed to evolve found their livelihoods threatened by mass production. Lesser-known facts. What many don't realize is that frontier blacksmiths were often the closest thing to doctors in early settlements. Their experience with injuries in their own dangerous profession made them the go-to people for setting broken bones, extracting teeth, and even performing crude surgeries when no medical professional was available. Blacksmiths frequently served as the first gunsmiths on the frontier, repairing firearms and sometimes manufacturing ammunition. This dual role made them particularly important in regions with hostile Native American relations or high criminal activity. Contrary to the stereotype of the burly, uneducated laborer, many blacksmiths were quite literate and mathematically skilled. Their work required precise measurements and calculations, especially for complex items like wagon wheels where dimensions had to be exact. One famous frontier blacksmith, John Deere, noticed that the cast-iron plows brought from the east constantly clogged in the thick Midwestern soil. In 1837, he created a self-scouring steel plow that revolutionized farming, and eventually built his invention into one of America's most successful companies. Conclusion. The frontier blacksmith shaped the West with every swing of his hammer, creating the tools that built communities and the weapons that defended them. These masters of fire and metal were indispensable innovators, whose skills helped transform wilderness into civilization, one forged piece at a time. Next time, we'll dig deep into more occupations of the Old West. Until then, this is P.W. Moore, and around here, we're keeping the Old West alive and bringing you back in history one story at a time. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the smoky world of the Frontier Forge, hit subscribe and give us a thumbs up today. If you're feeling particularly adventurous, leave a comment with something you'd like to see us cover.